But this is also a unity, and this is important to emphasize, and I've already touched upon it, but let me just emphasize it. It is a unity of true believers. He says, neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their word. True believers. Believe on me through their word. I don't know if this expression has been used before, but if not, I'm coining a new one. All right? Here it is. The ones Jesus is praying for are eternal life believers. Eternal life. What does he say back in verse 2? As thou hast given him power over all flesh, that he should give eternal life to as many as thou hast given him. And this is life eternal, that they may know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent. Eternal life, but not unbelieving believers, not believing unbelievers, but eternal life believers. Something has happened with these believers that Jesus prays for. He's not talking about those who simply believe the fact that Jesus is the Christ. I was struck in my devotional reading this last week with Luke chapter 4. It just hadn't stood out to me as it did this last week, and I'm sure it was in conjunction with what I was meditating on from John 17. But in Luke chapter 4, verse 40, now when the sun was setting, all they that had any sick with divers diseases brought them unto him, and he laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. And devils also came out of many, crying out and saying, Thou art the Christ, the Son of God. Did y'all hear that? Who said that? Who said that? Devils! Devils said that. Thou art the Christ. These things have I written unto you that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. That's the purpose of John. The devils confess that. That is a core doctrinal reality, a core truth that you must believe. But I'm telling you, the devils confess it. Listen, it says, they came out saying, Thou art the Christ, the Son of God. And He, rebuking them, suffered them not to speak, for they knew that He was the Christ. They knew it. Do you know that Jesus is the Christ? See, Jesus is talking about something more than that. When He talks about those who believe on me, Jesus is not praying for unity for cultural or political Christians. He's not saying, now Christian America, you guys all need to get together here. It's not what He's saying. Or in the Middle East, where you have the Muslims and you have the Christians. A political position that is taken on both sides. And He's not talking about family Christians. Why are you a Christian? Well, my whole family's a Christian. My grandfather, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, grandmother. We have a tradition of Christianity. That's not what He's talking about. Eternal life believers are those who have experienced union with God. Did you hear what Jesus prayed for? I'm in God, and God's in me. That's powerful. It's not something that you are creating. It's not something you aren't making yourself different. Something's going on in you. I read a testimony. I'm going to maybe read it to you publicly, but from a brother who wrote me. I asked him for his testimony, and he wrote it to me. And he talks about something that began to happen in him, and he wasn't looking for it, wasn't searching for it. It began to develop in him, and somebody gave him a Bible and said, read it, and he began to read it, and he read it over and over and over again, and there was life being created in him before he even understood what eternal life was. Now, I'm not saying that always happens, but it did with him. But that's what I'm talking about. Life being created in you. Eternal life. The life of God in the soul. Jesus is not praying for those who